Hello, everybody. This is Joe Bullis, and I am doing this recording to give you a brief overview of the Cultural Advocacy and Action Plan, otherwise known as the CAP, for the upcoming semester. And this is based off your request in the last Clinical Coach Zoom session that I go over the CAP for you so you can be kind of be prepared for the upcoming semester. So the CAP is basically you're doing the same thing here that you've done in the prior evidences is that you're going to pull in some information, some data through a research instrument. You're going to identify the gaps or areas of improvement based on what you found out. And then you're going to kind of create an action plan to address some of those gaps and make some recommendations. In regards to the CAP, this is all about the culture of your school, how the culture, how it is influenced by other factors and how it influences the stakeholders in the school, and once again looking for those areas of improvement in the culture of the school. So with the CAP, you're going to be working with the Teacher Working Conditions Survey again, and if you're not from North Carolina, as I said before, South Carolina has something comparable to that. You may be in a charter school. I've had candidates that have been in the private school. And so for whatever reason, if the Teacher Working Condition Survey is not available to you, you can use another validated cultural assessment to grab that information that you need to grab to do this evidence. If you have a question as to what that may be, just contact me, send me an email, and we can kind of look at your particular situation to see what we can use other than the Teacher Working Condition Survey. However, if you're in North Carolina, as you know, this year we just got the results back from our latest Teacher Working Condition Survey. So this is a good opportunity for you to look at that data and get a lot more practice and experience in pulling information out from that and using that to kind of shape and improve and strengthen and sustain your school as an administrator. So you can look through this. Like I said, you'll be using the Teacher Working Condition Survey. You'll also be creating a questionnaire based on what you've kind of found out in Teacher Working Condition Survey. You're also going to be doing some qualitative data pulls as far as your observation with the school, how it functions, what the culture is like, interviewing some people to pull in, as I said, some qualitative data on the culture of your school, maybe even conduct a focus group session. But that's going to be kind of directed by what you find out in your initial analysis of the Teacher Working Condition Survey and the survey, your questionnaire. Your questionnaire is also going to be based on what you found out from the Teacher Working Condition Survey. So let's go ahead. You can read all of this. It's a pull from the Scale Handbook. We'll go ahead and move on down. This is a document that I've used in the past with candidates, kind of guiding and directing them on accomplishing the CAP. So in task one, you're going to pull out that Teacher Working Condition Survey. You've worked with it before. You should be familiar with it, or like I said, in South Carolina, whatever you do there, pulling and looking at that as well. You're going to focus on these areas here, which are of the Teacher Working Condition Survey, which are empowerment, leadership, facilities, resources, and time. So you look at that data, you pull that data out, and then you do an analysis of it. What have you found out in each of these following areas? What are the good things that you found out? What are the strengths that you found out? What are the gaps that you've identified? The areas for improvement. And if you'll notice here, this does say largest gaps. Don't focus so much on every little thing, but what are some things that you can tackle that's going to have the greatest impact, which is also a good key of leadership for an administrator. Is as you look at the school and as you look at where you're at and where you're working, there's probably going to be a lot of areas that you can improve upon. What's going to be the biggest hit? What's going to get, as the old saying go, what's going to be the biggest bang you're going to get for your money? So look at those largest gaps that could be affected. And once again, there might not be any. Sometimes things are going great. However, I'm of the opinion that you can always improve, but it may not be a large gap. It may be a small gap. And if that's the case, as you look at this data and as you pull this data out, if that's the case, just acknowledge that. And then look at where you can have the most impact and the most positive impact within the context of the CAAP. So once again, you're looking at the TWCS in regards to empowerment, leadership, facilities, resources, and time. So what are the key items? What are the key gaps that you found out here? You don't have to use this graph. This is just I'm a visual learner, visual thinker, so it always kind of helps me to kind of put things within the context of a little chart or a little table, and that helps organize my thoughts. And you can certainly utilize this as well, and certainly in identifying what is you found out in the teacher working condition survey is some areas that need to be addressed. So in empowerment, what are some key items that you found out in analyzing that data that should be looked at? Once you do that, once you identify all of those key items or those largest gaps, then we'll move on down here. Then you're going to create or conduct a needs assessment based on that information. You're going to develop that needs assessment based on, and then this is important part, based on what you found out in the teacher working condition survey. So it should include some of the areas listed below, but you should talk about the background description of the setting that has an impact on the culture, but then talk about the purpose of the needs assessment. And you're going to identify or create a survey to give to the stakeholders within these five key items that you identified in Part A. So the gaps that you identified, then create a survey, kind of finding out what's going on there. Based on that analysis, create a survey to kind of find out a little bit more about why that gap may be there in the culture. So you're going to talk about the participants and the participation. That's not the participants of your PLC group, but the participants of the survey that you created based on those gaps that you identified from the teacher working condition survey. So talk about the survey, talk about the people who participated, and what was your response rate? How many people did you survey? What was the rate of return on that survey? How was the participation? How did that all involve? And then what are the results of that survey that you conducted? What did you find out, and what does that mean? An analysis of the findings. And then based on that, make recommendations. So once again, take the teacher working condition survey. You focus on those key items. You identify any large gaps that's created, and then you conduct and create a survey that will focus in and kind of dig in a little bit more into those gaps that you identified to find out some additional information. Get that information, analyze it, and you make recommendations based on that. So you survey the same 5 key items that you identified in Part A. So the survey questions should be related to time, resources, facility, leadership, and so on. Okay. So then you identify and you develop a key question from each of those. From what you found out, what's a key question that you could pull out regarding empowerment, leadership, facilities, resources, time, and so forth. Do it in a Likert scale and determine how the participants, the people at your school, respond to each of those items. And that's task 1. Now, task 2 is an environmental analysis. So you're going to kind of look at qualitatively, look at this, your school, and look at your culture, and then pull the information out just based on that. Things like, once again, the setting of the school, how's the school organized, what, kind of digging into what's the school like within the community, and how is the environment, what's the student achievement, the diversity of the school, exceptionalities of the school, some of those demographics that you've looked at before, look at them again, and within the context of the culture. So in task 2, you would describe the school setting, describe the community setting, look at the environment of the school. Some of those qualitative things you can just go and look at. You can pull a lot of information from bulletin boards, just walking through the hallway, just how the school's set up, from the marquee sign out front, just from what makes this school unique, what makes your school the school that it has become. You look at some of those things in regards to that, and then you can pull a lot of information: student achievement, exceptionalities, the diversity of the school, the culture of the school is certainly affected by that as well. And basically, what you're going to look at here is, you know, North Carolina school report card. You can pull a school report card. You can pull a lot of information there as well. And this is where you talk and interview people and find out more about those key items that you've identified. Once you look at the gaps that were the largest gaps, and then found some additional information in the survey, then talk to people about that. What have you found out? And interviewing some people that addresses those. It's always a good idea here to include some statements that people say about whatever you identified, and looking at that. So here's a little chart to kind of wrap your head around that. What did the survey source say? What would the needs assessment say? And then how did you back that up? So, and this was really a mixed method research, kind of a mini mixed method research. Is you're using quantitative and qualitative data. Quantitative will be what you pull in from the teacher working condition survey. Qualitative and quantitative also from your survey that you created, the needs assessment finding, and the survey that you created based on this information. And then qualitative is just looking at the school in general. What can you observe as a researcher? What can you go and observe? And what is the feeling that you get from some of the interviews and some of the information that you found out? It's maybe not things that you can put a number to, but just some additional qualitative data that describes the culture of that school. And that will be task 2. Task 3 is you're going to look at the other information that's available to school. You're going to look at the vision, look at the mission of the school, go back to the teacher working condition survey and kind of go back and pull some information back from that, the school leadership. What's the experience and certification of the teachers at that school, or the leadership at that school? How is teaching and learning occurring? So it's just kind of a cultural competency audit by looking at those things that a school has developed and presents themselves to be in the way of school mission, in the way of school vision. If the school talks about their core leadership values or the indicators that they use to determine if this school is successful, you may want to talk about that as well. What's the teacher quality look like? What's the school leadership quality look like? And just kind of pull in some of those things. Once again, the school report card can be beneficial to you in this as well. Parental involvement and support. How is conflict resolved? What's some of the student achievement? And so once again, use the school report card to present that. All right, so once you get all of that information gathered from task 1, task 2, and task 3, then you're going to create a graphic organizational chart that represents each of those categories that you found out. And now this is a strong point. This is a very important point, and this being evaluated. When you develop this graphical organization chart, you need to show the connections. And this is important for you as an administrator too, is to look at these different variables that are included in this huge big equation that makes up your school, and show how they connected to each other, how they influence and how they impact each other, and recognize that you can see that as a leader, that these are some things going on. But also, I need to know, how are these things, whatever they may be, how are these gaps connected, and how do people see these gaps, and how are they, their perception of these gaps connected in the all together, which makes up the culture of your school. It's, you know, recognized here. You can use a graphic organizational chart, a PERT chart. You can Google, you may have already worked with PERT charts before. If you haven't, you can Google PERT chart, excuse me, PERT chart. You can Google that and kind of find out how to develop one of those based on all the information. So you've got to show what you've collected in task 1 through 3 in a graphical form, but also showing the connections between each of those. And that is the CAAP. Of course, you always want to summarize, provide you references, any artifacts you created, but that together is the CAAP. So that's just a quick overview of the CAAP. We'll be talking a little bit more about it as we go into the next semester and looking at it, you know, a little bit more specifically. But this is a good starting place for you. Then remember, in the SIP, the SCIP, what you found out here in the CAAP, if you'll notice here in task 4, you don't do a reflection. Well, basically you're doing a reflection, but it's in the form of creating a graphical organization chart. You're reflecting on what you found out. But as far as writing and doing a narrative on the reflection of what you found out in regards to the CAAP, you will be doing that in task 4 of the SIP, SCIP. So basically that's it. Let me know if you have any questions on anything I talked about or need any clarification on anything I talked about. I tried to do this as quickly as possible to make it a quick presentation and a quick overview for you. So I may have rushed through a few things. So if you need me to clarify or repeat or answer any questions, just let me know. Thank you very much. I hope you guys are having a great day whenever you view this, and we will see you next.